Goldberg. We'll talk about your role as convener of NEDLAC's labour market, or in the labour market chamber. Firstly, I want to talk to you about the issue of unemployment. It's a crisis that is just refusing to go down. What's happening?
Well, good morning to you and your viewers. At least the stats are stable, but the youth unemployment stats are worrying to all of us as South Africans. Again, if state-owned enterprises are failing, including Eskom, how do you actually engender any and start any small business if 3 hours of the day, in your main business trading hours, you cannot trade your business, your coffee machine, you cannot run your business because you don't have electricity. So again, it comes back to the Eskom debate. Unless you solve the problems for some of these state-owned enterprises, take SA, your previous story. Just put another 3 billion rand into SA. Unless you solve these problems, of course, downstream, you're not going to get the opportunities to employ youth.
And I'm glad you bring up the issue of Eskom, because this is what Cosatu ostensibly is trying to stave off: the job losses at Eskom, by proposing that pensions be used possibly to down pay some of that Eskom debt. You are the convener of business in the labour market chamber at NEDLAC. Where does business stand on this issue?
Well, you've seen business stand behind the proposal in principle, but clearly it comes with conditions, and one needs to unpack those conditions. But the reality of the fact is Eskom is a real big problem. It fails, we all fail. It fails, there's no jobs, there's problems around youth unemployment, there are problems across the whole economy. So someone has to solve or put proposals on the table for solving the 450 billion rand debt. This debate, and if you look at their document, which I looked at very closely, it's a debate, it's to engender debate, and that's exactly what it's done. I think you've got to credit Cosatu for coming up with a plan. I haven't seen a plan come from anyone else in respect to solving the 450 billion crisis. Yes, it's defined, remember, but your workers are guaranteed their return provided the state doesn't fail. It's a defined benefit contribution scheme, so ultimately the debt has to be taken over by the state in some form.
Exactly, and that's the point that you actually are going into, because it is government money that is being committed here, because the state is the guarantor of those pensions. Perhaps, therefore, the question is, what happens in order to try and make sure that these monies are committed to something that is viable? You have FEDUSA on the one hand that says, actually put this thing under business rescue. Would business buy into that?
I think business would buy into anything that rescues and starts to correct the problems that we see at Eskom. But one of the big problems is the 450 billion rand debt. We're going to have to solve for that. And maybe an investment into that by government or by pension funds or by some other mechanism is a way to solve for that, because they're going to continue running into crises if they're going to have to pay back 450 billion rands worth of debt. We know that, and that's been extrapolated by economists in respect of the consequences of that.
Ultimately, what's the solution here? What is the right medicine for Eskom?
Well, I think the one issue for me that's come out from the Cosatu proposal is that business, labour and government have to have a social pact. The Germans were out here last week, Merkel and them, and that's what they formed the economy and the social pact. We're going to solve for some of these economic problems in South Africa and the crisis unless we have a pact in respect of how we're going to do issues. So one of your reports was talking about labour laws. There might be some elements of labour law that need to be more flexible in respect to, say, the first 6 months of employment, or in respect of higher earners not having the protection of South African labour law that other lower earners don't have. Those proposals were all made to Parliament in 2014, and some of them rejected. That was as a result of a social pact coming out of NEDLAC. So we need to go back to the drawing table and say, what can we do in the short term to improve the situation of job losses and opportunities for jobs? Remember, it's not only job losses and it's about opportunities created for youth. Because unless you create those opportunities, as we saw in these latest stats, people become more and more disenchanted in respect of going to look for a job. And that's a very dangerous situation.
Jonathan Goldberg is from the Global Business Solutions, CEO there. Thank you very much for coming through.
Thank you very much.